Hey guys, it's Mike from Backyard RC, and it's that time of year again when we're back in the shop. In front of me I have a top Flite P-51 Mustang fuselage. This is from their Gold Edition kit. I'm just getting it ready for the covering stages, so I figured I'll bring you guys along with me throughout the prep on this model, and I'll take you through how I cover anyway. I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but it's how I've had pretty good luck with models in the past. For our prep stage, there's some things you're gonna need. You definitely want some sanding blocks, some sandpaper of all different grits, right up to 600 I take it down to myself. For filling any little dings and dents, I use Deluxe Materials Model Light Balsa Filler. And then for making my fillets and stuff down along the ribs, I use Sure Pink spackling. This is a featherweight spackling, non-shrink, and it sands out great. Honestly, it's one of my favorite things to use, but everybody has their own way of doing things that way. So I'm at the stage here where I have most of my prep honestly complete. I'm just starting to fill a few final dings, and then we're gonna take her through the sand process, which you guys will see, and then we'll start the work on the covering. So the first thing I'm actually gonna do is just use some of this balsa filler. On the back side of the tail, I have a couple dings I just want to fill up here. So it's just putting a coat on to fill the dings. Some of the bigger dings you will need 2 or 3 coats once you actually sand it down. Along the seams is an area where you normally get some glue seepage, so filling and sanding all your seams is always a good idea. The final key to the covering process is actually in the prep stage that we're at now. If the model doesn't have a nice smooth surface underneath, that monocoat, ultra coat, or whatever covering you're gonna be using isn't gonna have a nice finish on the outside. So I'm just gonna rotate it here, guys. Fill up my couple dings. As you see, that's what I'll be doing here, and then we'll let it dry up and start sanding. As I'm going along here, guys, I'm just trying to find any high or low spots or spots that are sticking out. You can normally feel the bumps underneath pretty good. So now that we have all our little dings filled up, I'm gonna go ahead and do my last coat here down along the fillets. I'll show you guys how I do that. This is gonna be a very light coat. You can get it pretty smooth with your fingers right off the start. So I just apply it and slowly run it and press it out. As this is a final coat, this isn't gonna be a heavy coat. It's more to get everything nice and smooth to avoid some sanding at the end of this. Sanding the airplane is one of the major tasks along the build process, as anyone who has built a kit before will know. So the nicer you can build and do all this prep work, the more time you're actually going to save yourself in the sanding process. Now this model's already been partially sanded. It's just gonna need a final sand at the end of this. So What I do here to smooth this out is you can use water, or as you probably just saw, I licked my finger. So you get your finger a little moist and this stuff will just spread out nice and smooth. Don't let your finger get dry or it will start to stick. And that's gonna leave me with a pretty smooth surface at the end of this. So I'm gonna go ahead here and we'll do the other side. Again, starting and just pushing it into those little pinholes from our layers underneath. Just like I did with the other side, we'll smooth it out. And we're gonna let that dry up here, guys, and we'll see you in a couple minutes for the sanding process. Hey guys, so our filler's all hardened up now, so we're gonna go ahead and start our sand. If you're trying to remove a lot of material, you're gonna want something a little heavier, but I'm using 300 grit sandpaper. You'll notice I always sand with a block, try not to distort the shape of the airplane. There's a few areas that you're not gonna be able to get with the sanding block, but I try to keep the hand sanding to a minimum. So we're just gonna start on the areas that we filled and remove the majority of the filler there. You can see we're left with it patched in on the little dents where we filled up, but you don't need to leave it extra on there. You want to get it nice and smooth, have a nice level surface for the covering. So I'm gonna speed this up, but I'm gonna go ahead here and sand out all the spots and give the whole airplane a once over in this 300 grit. Now you guys have probably noticed I didn't touch the fillets at all on the airplane yet, and that's because, like I mentioned, I try to use a block everywhere I can. So to fit the curve on this one, I'm actually using a chicken stick and I'm gonna wrap it in some 600 grit sandpaper as I basically have my final shape, so I'm not trying to remove too much material. This will give me a sanding block, so I'm not distorting it with my fingers when I sand in here. So I'm just gonna go up and smooth out that filler that we had put in. Here I'm gonna try and feather that edge out by hand. But again, trying to keep how much I hand sand here to a minimum. I'm gonna grab the block for a minute. You can see I'm gonna have a little more filling to do there just down at the tip. All in all, it's pretty good. And we're just gonna do the same thing on the other side. So guys, there we have it. We now have a 300 grit sand on the whole airplane. All our final shaping is to where we want it. You guys have probably noticed there's a hole in the front of this airplane sheeting for now. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that up. I did not actually build this kit. I got it at a stage just before this. I finished up the wing, but now we're on to the fuselage. So I'm gonna put a motor mount on the front of this one. That way I can close the front of this up, get the blind nuts and everything I need onto the firewall, sheet that, and I'm gonna use the same process we've been using here to fill that one. But we're at the stage now with our first sand on the airplane. We're gonna take the time now to fill any final little dings we're not fully happy with. So on this plane, when I was going through, just that one on the tail needs a little more filler. I thought I noticed one other, here it was, just in the tail. So we got that filled up. We're gonna let that dry. Then we'll give that a sand down. Oh, there was one other area just up on the front here. So fill that up and let that dry, and we'll give it its final sand before covering.